Hello. The country house in England experienced a transformation during the 20th century, the result of social change. The so-called big house, for centuries at the heart of local communities, many of whose owners took the responsibilities that went with their privileges seriously, serving in unpaid public positions, providing employment, housing, acting as patrons of good causes and local facilities such as schools, the parish church, perhaps a cottage hospital, or hosting the village fête, no longer had the resources. Domestic service ceased to be an attractive option. Increases to the school leaving age and better education opened up a wider choice of jobs. But the major threat was economic. Rising maintenance costs, land rentals that failed to keep pace with inflation, and the impact of income tax, and most importantly estate tax, colloquially death duty, caused significant problems. In the mid-19th century, agricultural land became less of an income generator. Cheaper food from abroad began to be imported, including grain, and with refrigerated ships, meat and dairy products from the United States. Land rents dwindled. Estates that once supported their owners now had to be supported by their owners. Many viewed involvement in trade as vulgar and thought land safer than businesses that might fail. Those who diversified or invested in decent share portfolios fared better. Children who grew up surrounded by a house full of servants faced ruin when they inherited. The legal process of entailment, which I mentioned briefly in part 1 of this series, became an increasing problem. Entailment developed from the common medieval practice of fee simple and was enshrined in law in 1285. Under its terms, tenure of a property was restricted to a specified beneficiary, normally the oldest male heir, who only had a life interest, effectively tying the property to the family. It had advantages. For example, a profligate heir couldn't dispose of an entailed property. On the other hand, a responsible owner faced with debts couldn't downsize. Various legal wheezes were invented to get around the issue before entailment was abolished in 1925. Probate duty was introduced at a fixed rate on estates over a certain value in 1694. This became progressive based on the value of the estate from 1780. Various inheritance taxes were imposed from 1796, including a succession tax imposed in 1853 on inherited property. A more punitive estate duty, based on assets owned at death, including the capital value of land, came into force in 1894. The rate was increased in 1909 and upped again in 1914, 1919 and throughout the 1940s. Some desperate families resorted to demolition to avoid a house being valued for probate, a vacant site being attractive to property developers. Death duties forced the sale of much of the Longleat estate in 1947, and Longleat became the first stately home in England to open to a paying public as a commercial enterprise, and in 1966, home to the first safari park outside Africa. When Edward Cavendish succeeded his father as Duke of Devonshire in 1938, he inherited significant debts, and death duties amounted to more than £500,000, forcing the sale of Devonshire House in London's Piccadilly and rare folios from the Chatsworth Library. His sudden and untimely death in 1950 saddled his heir Andrew with death duties at the highest rate of 80%. More works of art were auctioned, land was sold, and the Hardwick Hall estate handed over to the Treasury to make up the balance owed. Trustees took ownership of what remained. From 1981, a charitable foundation, the Chatsworth House Trust, set up to ensure the survival of the house for public benefit, has been in charge. Paying visitors, a large farm shop, restaurant and a range of branded goods now help to maintain the house and gardens. Blenheim Palace, home to the Spencer Churchill Dukes of Marlborough, opened to the public in 1950. Woburn Abbey, seat of the Duke of Bedford, had been partly demolished in the late 1940s after the discovery of dry rot. The death of the 12th Duke in 1953 left his heir with a semi-derelict house and a death duty bill of around £5 million. Opening the house to paying visitors in 1955 helped to keep Woburn in the family. A safari park was added in 1970. Ickworth House in Suffolk, with its striking dome central rotunda and flanking wings, was designed by Italian architect Antonio Asprucci and completed in 1829, surrounded by 1,800 acres of parkland. In 1956, the 6th Marquess of Bristol negotiated handing over the house and park along with an endowment to the National Trust in lieu of death duty, subject to a 99-year lease on the 60-room East Wing, where the family would continue to live. His successor, the 7th Marquess, sold the remainder of the lease to the National Trust in 1998. When his half-brother inherited, he wanted to buy the lease back, but his offer was refused and the East Wing leased instead to become Ickworth Hotel. Although country houses were being lost to the economic challenges of the 20th century, some new houses were being built, more compact, more comfortable, with modern facilities, but with a traditional look. The master of producing designs to meet that demand was Edwin Lutyens, and he will be my subject next time. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.